Good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here, and my co-pilot today does not look anything like Kiara because it's not Kiara. It's a good friend of ours, Mr. Andy Boyan. How you doing?
Yo. How you doing? Hey, I got a special surprise for you. Give me just 30 seconds right here. I'm just going to... Less than 30 seconds. Here we go.
Oh, shit. We got Santa in the house.
It's full-on holiday season here.
So instead of Andy Boyan, it's just Senior Claus is who we're talking to today.
Lieutenant,
Andy, good friend of the pod, good friend of mine personally, and the founder of a really cool project, Infinity Keys.
So good to be here. So good to be back. Man, things are exciting in crypto right now, JD. There's a lot going on, dude.
It's insane. We got a lot to talk about today. Kind of a continuation, actually, mainly of our conversation yesterday, which you weren't a part of, Andy, but Christine was our guest yesterday. And I mean, I was cautioning everybody about Bitcoin, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Bitcoin price movements today. We're going to talk about Fidelity's Ethereum ETF. We're going to talk about NFTs. Again, we talked a little bit about that yesterday, but we're going to talk more about NFTs and their future today. ETH rips past 2100. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some academia with respect to training and developing new participants for crypto and blockchain. And then we're going to talk about some trading philosophies and what people are thinking and talk a little bit more about ETH. So it's kind of an ETH NFT BTC day today.
I'm about it. I'm about those things. I've been thinking a lot about those things very recently. So I'm ready, man.
It's nice. It's just nice to have some positive stuff to talk about. So let's freaking go. Oh, wait, before we go, we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. All these major venues, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that shit. Help us get the reach that we need to, educate more people on what's going on in the space. Quick shout out to our friends at Moon Sama, Public Pressure, and Kilt for the merch today. They're our merch sponsor. I just like this kind of cartoony looking girl with a sword, so I'm a big fan of this shirt. All right, now we're done with all the formalities. Let's freaking go. Oh. It just makes you want to groove, doesn't it?
It's like, the last time I was on, she played the punk rock one, which is my jam, and so we kind of rocked out together.
Yeah, Kiara's a big rock girl.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite your metal.
No, she was wearing a shirt, a deep cut, and I called it. I was like, "That's this band," and so we're on the level.
You're on the same page.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We were talking before the show actually about how they don't normally let me touch all the fancy stuff because I just mess with shit. And as our video was evidence of today, I got click happy because it didn't happen right when I clicked it. So anyways, here we are. All right, let's jump into it. Fidelity. Now, yesterday we were talking about Franklin Templeton and Jenny, their CEO, and some of their support for and appreciation of blockchain and some of the core assets. Today, there's some discussion about Fidelity and their ETH ETF. And so they had a new, I'll kind of set this up a little bit, Andy, and then I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are. But essentially on November 17th, Fidelity filed with the SEC for their spot ETH ETF. And what the SEC has done, instead of straight denying it or just waiting, is they've started the 21-day period for public comments on the ETH ETF. Now they've cited a few things that might be important in this article. The first one is that there's a 240-day clock for approval that started on November 17th. So we're probably not going to see a ton of movement on this until probably the end of that 240 days. The SEC has not approved any spot ETFs, even though there's been a lot of applications and updates to how things are being done, I guess, in those ETF models. And what was the other one? They have investors from Germany, Switzerland, and France having different Ether exposure options. So anyways, kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on Fidelity in general? What are your thoughts on ETH ETFs? And do you think TradFi in this way is welcome?
I think TradFi is very welcome. And there's two major cryptocurrencies with product market fit. Now, deep into crypto, we know like some are really finding it. We're using, different currencies for different utilities and reasons. But broadly, besides just pure utility plays, Bitcoin and Ethereum, ETH and BTC have clear product market fit. They have demand for more than just, fees for the system, but as some sort of monetary store of value or whatever it happens to be. And it's not just us anymore. And,
Right.
it used to be a couple years ago when, my father-in-law would come and talk to me, he'd ask me about Bitcoin. Now he's asking about Bitcoin and ETH and a couple other things. There more of the, just consumers and people who would be the customers for this are just getting more savvy. They know a few more of these names as we've breached the mainstream over time. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's totally expected. So in general, and of course, it's very, very welcome by the space. I'm of course I'm happy to have anybody buy my bags, right? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
So some questions I have are the ETH futures ETF came out last year during the summer sometime, and the word that I heard was it was not picked up very well. Like nobody cares that much about ETH futures. Of course, it's down market, sentiment's horrible, and you can just buy ETH, like, for most people who are interested. So, but all in all, like, I'm not surprised, especially given the push for Bitcoin and ETF and that excitement. Fidelity, somebody who's going to be a powerful champion inside that organization is going to say, okay, there's another really strong asset in this class, at least one, maybe a lot more. We got to move on this too, and let's be first.
Yeah. I think obviously, like we've talked a lot on the show about the differences between spot and futures ETFs, but I think it's worth noting here again. A futures ETF is essentially numbers on a screen. It's not you're not physically settling any of the transactions. So you're not buying and transacting in actual Bitcoin. It's just representative numbers on a screen. And so it doesn't have even remotely close to the same impact on the space. It has, well, it's not even in the same order of magnitude impact on the space, really. And so a spot ETF is physical settlement of the actual underlying asset. So for every dollar of Bitcoin that you own of a spot ETF, there's a dollar of Bitcoin that is held on your behalf. And that makes a big difference because it creates that supply demand kind of crunch for the asset, which is why everybody's speculating the price is going to go up. Futures ETFs are just in some ways a bit of a casino and a bit of a cash grab, in my opinion. And so I think that that's not alarming to me that it wasn't super adopted, the futures ETFs. The other thing about the futures ETFs is you have to trust the company behind it implicitly. And that is in many ways the antithesis of what we're building in the space. Mm-hmm. So almost alienating the majority of potential users, at least your initial wave of users, which are people that are already here. And so anyways, all of this to say, I'm of course supportive of Fidelity. We have some friends at Fidelity in senior management that we've been talking to for years, just understanding their opinions and kind of their approach to the space, what they're looking at. And they've been huge supporters of the space. So I'm excited for Fidelity. I love to see bigger names kind of throwing their hat in the ring, so to speak. BlackRock, if you remember, also filed an ETH spot ETF application. And so anyways.
The more of these the more major institutions are interested and need to do something with crypto, whatever it is, then there's more diversification in our industry and opportunity for business. I'm a startups guy. And so like, I'm not going to be making the system that helps do proof of reserve audits for Fidelity, but I know people that are. And so I'm really excited for a diverse set of businesses that can go out there and provide these services for these. That expands, right? That just kind of grows our pie as an industry. And so that I can keep doing my weird things too down here at the little, weird gaming edge of things.
Yeah.
But when these come in, that's more customers, that's more use, that's more hiring, which is more education, which is more investment, because now, right, just people are getting more familiar. It grows the pie, whether it's out or up or diagonal or all the way. So yeah. I love this. Absolutely.
I think it's awesome. I mean, there's a lot of potential headwinds against an ETF. But I must say, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, the performance of ETH relative to most other altcoins in this last cycle was noticeably different than previous cycles. I don't have data to back that up. That's more anecdotal. But the ETH drawdown, the max ETH drawdown and volatility was substantially less than in bear markets previous.
It was similar to Bitcoin, right? Like, it dropped down to half and then, maybe another third and then recovered as people realized like this is a strong, more mature asset. And so what's really warming to me about price action is, okay, we've definitely got a couple of assets now, Bitcoin and ETH, that are maturing. And then there's this cadre below them, 10, 20, 100, that are starting to reach that are finding that product market fit, that are starting to act in predictable ways. And that's really encouraging, because then that says, Fidelity, well, we can build some models and they won't be perfect. There's going to be volatility, but you can build some models around those things, which more access.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, giving access to individuals to an ETF, again, is a big user experience upgrade for the people that would only buy ETH and Bitcoin anyways, right? It's the same idea in the stock market. Very, very, very few people day trade relative to the amount of people that buy mutual funds, ETFs, really broadly diversified portfolios that they hold for decades. I mean, again, we keep thinking about the perfect utopian outcome. But the reality is 99.9% of the population wouldn't use it that way anyways. And so, I think it's interesting. It's interesting to see that, it's opening access to more people. I think it's huge for the space, of course. And ETH is proving itself to be a formidable option, which is super exciting. Okay, we're gonna leave the ETF proposal for a minute, and we're going to jump over to a space that very, very well, my friend.
Oh, we were just talking number go up. Why are we talking number go down, JD?
Yeah, well, we got to have some FUD that we have to dispel here.
But, yeah, right.
So we were talking. I was talking yesterday about, I think it was yesterday or maybe Friday, about just NFTs in general. And it's one of those things that, do I think NFTs as a technology are going to disappear? Absolutely not. Do I think that there's a lot of disruption that can come from that token standard and that technology and way of thinking? Absolutely. Where I struggle a little bit is, I think, the speculative bubble of, some version of scarce PFPs. I don't think that's really going to be a thing for much longer. You're going to see a few of the it's similar to like Dogecoin and stuff. Are we going to see another meme coin get to 50 billion in market cap? Maybe, but not very likely. And so NFTs, I think we're going to see something similar. I don't think we're going to see as many generative PFP projects this year. That's my opinion. But although ETH and Bitcoin and many other things are just ripping, so to speak, especially in the last quarter of the year, NFTs have really struggled. They've kind of stayed the same. I think there's more transaction volume, but the prices are kind of staying pretty constant. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think the future of NFTs look like?
I think you are 3, 4, 5 years too early with your prediction. and I think we've got at least one more cycle of utter stupidity. We can stay stupider and degenerate longer than you can stay solvent. So what I think is that there's a couple of different cycles. As the industry matures, it's getting different segments, and NFTs are just in a slightly different cycle. You think about the user that really came in and boomed NFTs and brought their money in. They're not interested in wallets and multi-sigs and L2. Some are, but like that's a pretty specialized category. And instead, this sort of consumer user that wants that PFP, that wants to go to parties, that wants to do that whole thing, flip NFTs, they're not quite ready yet. They haven't recovered. but that doesn't mean it's done by any means.
Yeah.
So I think NFTs are struggling just because we're not at that part of the cycle. For a year and a half, everyone's been like, I'm only investing in infrastructure. Trust me, I know. I pitched to them. I'm like, hey, we've got NFTs and we're gaming. Want to fund me? And they're like, no, we only invest in infrastructure. And that's what's popping right now. Celestia is going. Chainlink is going, right? The L1s, the L2s are going. Infrastructure is popping. But this core market that still cares about NFTs, they had a blast. They built communities. They built friendships. They had this whole sort of culture around it. That's not gone. It's quiet now. And just like crypto got quiet, when I told people I was in crypto, 6 months ago, I would get like, oh, and now people are texting me again, like, hey, how you been? It's the same story, and it happens every couple of years. So personally, I think NFTs, they've got so much revolutionary utility far beyond PFPs and those collections. Yeah. But I think, like Dogecoin, I think that's a great example. Things start as toys and they're fun, and fun catches on. And I don't think we're anywhere near done with that. The appetite for speculation and just stupidity and having fun and getting rich, that ain't gone, man. It's still, the 2020s, like people are still looking out for that. It's just like whether or not people are ready to ape in and do that. But that always happens at some inflection point. Pours in, something will go bonkers. I don't know. I wish I knew what it was, right? The keystone, but I don't think we're done with it.
I hope you're right. I mean, I'm the first one to say that I am not an authority on the NFT space at all. Like every NFT project I've ever bought has been the wrong purchase decision. Like if I get a one of one, then that project is guaranteed to suck. It's happened twice. Anyways, so I'm not an authority on NFTs. I hope you're right. My concern, I guess, is a lot of the people that were really feeding that hype cycle were kind of your 18 to 24-year-old segment of the population. The unfortunate thing during the NFT craze was almost all of them bought the top. And so, I mean, with that in mind, we're just going to have to think about how to attract a new wave of degens, I guess. I don't know, but
I'm reminded of the quote of the Matthew McConaughey quote in Dazed and Confused. You know what he likes about dating high school girls? he gets older and older, and they stay the same age.
Yeah, they're constantly in high school.
A whole new class is graduating and figuring out like, okay, I have disposable income. I have a job now. I want to do something with it. The economy sucks. I want to have fun. I want cool, one-on-one shoes and experiences.
We need COVID 2.0, I guess, so that we can get PPP. Oh,
you jinxed it. Don't do that, because we're all tracking the same thing. Like, what's going on?
Here, I got one more question for you on this one, and we're going to move on because we got a lot to cover, and you and I are really good at going over time. Since you and I have slightly different opinions on this, in your mind, do you think that existing collections will recover and then surpass recent all-time highs, assuming they're still developing? Or do you think that most of the value capture is going to be in new concepts rather than the generative PFPs?
Both. You saw in the 2017 token sale cycle, some tokens did really well and sold and tanked and have never recovered, but they built a treasury to build infrastructure and to do things. Status. I love Status, but their token just doesn't do anything, right? It's just a stable coin. So that was a bummer. But then you see other things, ETH notably, and I'm blanking on some other ones that did have success and have come out of that very well. And yet the new tokens have performed better because people figure out better ways to do things, or at least better ways to market things and explain it. So I think a combination, and it's more than just NFTs on Ethereum now. We've got ordinals on Bitcoin. We've got Wax blockchain that has a bucket load of NFTs, and I don't know how much of that activity is legit, but like they have activity. So there's way more places for thinking about digital assets in different ways. So there's a ton of opportunity for innovation there. If anybody wants to talk ordinals with me, hit my Twitter, because like the rabbit hole is deep, my friends, and it is cool. It is really cool what's going on there.
See, maybe we'll have to revisit the ordinals piece one day, because we were actually talking about that. I think it was on Friday, maybe Thursday, how BTC had like the vast majority of NFT related volume in the space for a long time, but it's now since calmed down and has been resurpassed by volumes and activity on ETH and Solana, which is interesting. I don't know much about ordinals other than I also think that it's super speculative and has no value. But again, it's probably advisable to counter trade me most of the time.
Speculation is product market fit. Sorry, that's my we got into this yesterday. Next, I'm ready.
Yeah, too funny. Anyways, we could talk about this probably all day, but let's move on a little bit. We're going to talk about this really quickly, but I don't want to dwell on it. Goerli testnet for ETH, which was the original multi-client testnet, is going to retire following the Denkin network upgrade.
Thank you. Here's the only concern is Sepolia, the next testnet that's kind of like the main one, is what Coinbase decided to use. And so that's kind of like what not everybody's using, but like that's a major one. So that's the only thing to watch out for. I think Coinbase is usually a good actor, but as we have testnets and infrastructure that is for everybody to use, we want to make sure that infrastructure testnets are decentralized too. So farewell, Goerli. Keep an eye on those other things, but I got Sepolia ETH. It works. It's fine.
Yeah, I just don't understand why there's multiple testnets personally, but anyways. I never really understood what the point of having more than one testnet of the same blockchain is. But
man, I was rich on Wrinkleby. Man, I was like Scrooge McDuck swimming in ETH.
Yeah, well, and then you get things like Moonriver, which was the Moonbeam testnet that people just implied value and somehow created markets for stuff, and like all the testnet tokens actually have a value now. It's super strange. Anyways, didn't want to dwell on this point too much. I don't think we have a ton of developers that listen to the call, but worth noting, Goerli in the coming months is going to be deprecated. Probably a nothing burger considering there's other test nets that more people are using. So we'll have to find out what comes of that. Okay, so over the weekend and into yesterday, we had some fun watching the markets, and you and I both had a moment right before the pod when we looked at market prices and realized that exactly the opposite of what I said yesterday happened. And instead of going straight from 40,000 through 42,000, which is what all the pundits were suggesting, I was like, there's probably going to be a pullback, guys. Don't get too excited about the FOMO, and sure as shit, to prove me wrong, the market went straight through 42,000. But so did ETH. ETH had a really good surge in the last little bit. It's through 2,100. Is it still above it? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, 2270. So it's continuing to rip, which I suppose is understandable. Any thoughts on why you think this is happening? Of course, the article suggests that it's that there's growing TVL in many of the ecosystems, which is obviously interesting. This whole Blast thing, people are getting all fired up about Blast and the 600 million TVL that they've already got there, which we talked about yesterday. What are your thoughts? Why is ETH pumping?
It's totally simple. We're out of sellers. We ran out of sellers, and anybody who was waiting had cash in their pockets, and then they waited. And then price starts creeping up on Bitcoin ETF, and a couple of people sell Bitcoin for ETH, and price creeps up. There's no more sellers, but there's people with dry powder. That's it. It's so simple. It's like as the narrative shifts and people watch others, and we start heading up. Now, it's important to note, I think, this is a bull run, not necessarily a full-blown bull market. There's plenty of room for turnarounds and fallback. And we got so much time, like until next election, and like all these geopolitics and macro stuff is still going on. But nevertheless, trends are moving in a number go up direction. Let's just take it for what it is. We need this, JD. Just breathe. People, we ran out of sellers. And at some point, people will have enough and they'll sell and it'll drop down again. But then we'll see. But
so the translation of that is Andy's suggestion is it's going straight up with no bumps. That's what I heard.
Well, I want to know what you said, because I'm gonna do some actions based on that, but not exactly.
Financial advice from Andy Bland is markets go straight up, and that's what's going to happen. Okay. Another thing that I think is near and dear to your heart that's worth talking about. Obviously, exciting that we're talking about ETH ETFs and we're talking about advancements in Ethereum technology, and now the third piece of that is the Ethereum price seems to be following suit. We've identified why we think that is. But something else that's kind of interesting is there's a lot more people now starting to talk about the involvement of blockchain in academia. And this particular reporting is on is somewhat negative with respect to Ethereum. One of the core Ethereum team leads, Peter Szilagyi, more or less said that his former university, which I can't remember, of course, off the top of my head, but let me find it. It doesn't. I don't think it actually says what university.
I think he's European though, because he was out of Istanbul for DevConnect.
Yeah. So, anyways, his whole thing was because there's not as much involvement of post-secondary students and associations at colleges and different things. At DevConnect, they actually put a bunch of prizes up for ETH developers and so on. Woo! Thank you. So, anyways, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. I just want to tee it up by saying I think this is something that I'm really excited about. This is like one of those weird kind of fringe things that tell us a lot about the space. And so as soon as universities and technical students and professors and now we're talking meaningful mainstream adoption, which I think is a long ways away. And I'm sure you're going to tell me all the reasons why. But what are your thoughts on this? I mean, obviously, of late, there's been a lot of controversy around the space. We've been branded from a PR perspective as money laundering and criminal activity only, and a bunch of scams and whatever. Although that does exist, it's not the bulk of it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on current state of post-secondary involvement and the future?
For context, I have a PhD from a very reputable research university, and I was a professor for 10 years. I was the chair of my department. I got tenure, so I was deep. I was on the committees. I was deep in the academic system. And academia is slow on purpose. And it is designed that way so that it doesn't get caught up in fad research and fad trends and make mistakes on major scientific breakthroughs or research or things like that. Now, it still does. The system's not perfect. But take tenure, for example. Tenure is a system designed so that once you have proven that you are a sufficient researcher and respected enough in your field and good enough, it's very, very difficult to fire you for whatever topic you want to research. After I got tenure, I could go and research 9/11 and anything, abortion and whatever I wanted. And it's almost impossible to fire me. Now, there's some negative side effects to that we won't get into now. But that's an example of here's why the institution moves slow. It's to give protection to academics for studying what they want to study.
So now, before you continue, do you think that it's then the academic institutions that are causing the lack of engagement? Or do you think that crypto companies haven't done enough to collaborate with post-secondary institutions?
It's both, but it's mostly on the universities because they're built that way. The only way, you can't go to a professor and just be like, hey, go research crypto. That's not how that works. I studied my thing for literally 15 years and pivoting to a new thing. As soon as I did it for a year and a half, crypto, that's actually what I did. I pivoted. I left. I bailed. I was like, well, they're paying me nothing. I'm going to crypto and I can make a living wage. And it's so hard for people to really pivot like that in academia. The people who do are fundraisers. They're the people who are raising money for universities. And guess what they all did? They did a great job raising money for universities 2 years ago. And then everything tanked. And those people who were the champions in your university, well, they're not so highly placed anymore, are they? They're out of here. And they're not interested because they can't afford the volatility in their career. So there's systems in place in universities that make it really hard for universities and people in universities to get invested emotionally, intellectually, financially in our industry. So in order for crypto companies to do that, they have to make long-term bets, starting not at students. A lot reach out to students, and that's good for startups and incubators and things like that. But you got to make much more long-term bets into graduate programs beyond computer sciences and beyond business, honestly. And that just hasn't really been done yet.
Yeah, I think there's definitely opportunity. What Peter said in the article also is that there's a few institutions, his alma mater in particular, he reached out to for collaborative opportunities and no response after weeks of waiting. And so that's again, symptomatic of what you're saying is that it's not even necessarily that they don't want to, it's they don't know how they possibly could in the short term.
Yeah. So, who do I send this to?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know. The business school, the computer school, like they don't know who to send it to.
Yeah.
That's very, very real. And so it goes to one person at the university who's like the weird, who's known for being the weird tech guy. And he's like, I don't have time for this because he gets everything. He's busy doing virtual reality or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If anybody out there is like crypto industry folks want to do university outreach, and you really want to start something, get a hold of me and we can make a plan. But you got to make a strategy. It's got to be long term. It's got to be multi-pronged. And it's very possible. I think it is possible, but really you're talking 5 years minimum, 10 for real results, because 10 years, now you're getting graduate students that are out and publishing and getting their own grants and having their own students. Now we're talking, and that's more than just computer science, as I said before.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's definitely a long game that often industries and corporations aren't willing to play. Now, quick shout out on this topic. And lately it sounds like I'm quite the fanboy of XRP. I think Brad is a really smart guy, and team is really astute. And they've made a lot of moves that didn't make sense until they all make sense all of a sudden right now, from Ripple's future perspective. But what I really like about what Ripple's done is they've done meaningful and deep multi-year, multifaceted relationships with post-secondary. So they've assigned or they've offered fairly sizable scholarships and grants, and I think donations to create like blockchain institutes and all this other shit at certain post-secondaries. I think that's really interesting. Another group that's contributing to this in a meaningful way worth shouting out is a VC fund called Crypto Dorm Fund. They essentially, their LPs are angels, high net worth individuals, et cetera, but their whole thing is that they're deeply connected with all of the blockchain associations in US colleges. And I know them fairly well. And if you're looking for like referrals or potential hires coming out of college, he's definitely a guy that's plugged in.
One more is College DAO. It's a student-run DAO, an organization that's now nationwide, and they're really focused on students who want to enter the industry, business, computer science. But I met those founders. They came out of the University of Michigan, and so at a local meetup, and it's good. It's good spot.
That's really neat. All right. So just as we end today, institutional traders, although number go up, lots of excitement. Maybe we're out of sellers. Institutional traders are saying, I don't know, Bitcoin, everybody was on board with Bitcoin's recovery because ETF. And now the institutional guys are wondering, are we really in a bull market for ETH? I think yes. I think all signs are suggesting to us that, it's not just BTC that's going to run here. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're going to see market-wide movement, or is it just going to be a BTC and ETH show for a bit?
A whole bunch of frogs and laser eyes said Bitcoin is stable money, and it's inflationary, and it took years for people to kind of grok that and figure it out. And then last cycle, people come out, ETH is ultrasound money. It's deflationary. It's got a burn, but a burn is different than a hard cap and things like that. So it's complicated. It's going to take people a while to kind of grok what are the economics of it. Yeah. So I understand why people are mixed because, here's yet another, crypto thing. So I'm bullish on it, obviously. But I do understand it's weird. We forget. It's weird because we're all looking at, yield bearing L2s and restaking and V bribes and like all this crazy stuff. So we're like, yeah, ETH, they just burn some of it. Like that's not that complicated, but it really is. It's a very different asset class than most people are accustomed to.
Yeah. So just a couple points from this article before we kind of end for the day. But, on average, institutional traders doubled their Bitcoin holdings in the first 3 quarters of 23. While at the same time, due to higher leverage, they're actually showing lower, or retail traders are showing lower BTC holdings because they're just taking on more leverage, which is, of course, a concern, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. What else? Altcoin holdings declined. Most people are rotating back to BTC, apparently, because the upside, given volatility, is seemingly a better bet. I guess time will tell. K33 Research is one of the groups that was contributing to this article, and they said more or less they're advising clients to shift back to BTC from ETH. I'm not sure I completely agree. I still subscribe to the theory of the waterfall effect generally. Until BTC or any other asset is completely decoupled from the rest of the space, it's almost invariably a waterfall. BTC goes up, people make some profits, as you were saying, then they sell, they take those profits and invest in something else now that they think they can,
It's the majors rotation, and you can do that. And that, I mean, the majors rotation, that's not for me. I'm a super minnow, and so I'm looking for the bet that isn't popping yet, right? That's what I'm like. Bitcoin's doing fine, Ether's doing fine, coin is doing great if we're out of, into stocks, but like that's all correlated to me too. I think it'll all kind of go up together. What'll pop more, what less? Like it's the majors rotation. They'll do a little merry-go-round for a little while.
Yeah, rotator. Isn't that how it goes? We're going to see all the memes pretty soon. That's what I'm most excited about. Is we haven't had
memes.
We haven't had fresh memes in a while, and it keeps things fun. Anyways, Andy, it's a pleasure as always having you on. Pretty soon I'm going to get voted off the island here because our guests have way better opinions than I do. So thank you again. I'm sure we'll have you on. I think you're on next week too, right?
Yeah, I'm coming next week or the week after. Something, I don't know. I'll be around.
Sweet. All right. If people want to get a hold of you, they can find you where?
At Andy Boyan, ANDYBOYAN, on basically every platform, but Twitter DMs and Twitter @ me. Respond to my bad threads. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
And
on LinkedIn too for those,
InfinityKeys.io. InfinityKeys.io is.
If you want to go find a little game and mint a little NFT for free, you can go
a little bit of fun. All right. Well, we are a live show for everybody that didn't know. You can tell because I say dumb shit and it makes it onto the stream. Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. And today, with all of that in mind, I say to you, my friend, go find yourself. Later.